gives you a closer look at the events that happened around Maine this week.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Cindy Campbell. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, but a Maine organization has altered that title to reflect more than just awareness. Here's Casey Falkingham of Partners for Peace to talk about this issue that is all too prevalent in Maine. Casey, what is Partners for Peace?
Partners for Peace is the Domestic Violence Resource Center for Penobscot and Piscataquis counties. It was actually the first domestic violence resource center in Maine, and it was the third in the country. And we have nearly 50 years of serving survivors in Penobscot and Piscataquis counties.
Wow. And you offer a variety of services, right? Everything from legal services to helping with housing.
Yes, we help survivors and anyone affected by domestic violence and abuse in so many ways because the needs of survivors and those affected are very complex and vast. We help with a 24-hour helpline. We have legal services. We can help people with things like protection orders. We have sheltering and transitional housing services, support groups, children's services, and more.
Important point in there. It's not only the grown-ups who are affected by domestic violence, but children too. So you need to take that into consideration.
Absolutely. And devastatingly, this year we saw more deaths of children because of domestic violence than I have seen in this work. Over the past year, 5 children have been killed as a result of domestic violence.
Wow. It really is an issue in Maine for, children and adults, but there is a lot of domestic violence in Maine, isn't there?
There is indeed a lot of domestic violence in Maine. And there's a lot of domestic violence everywhere. But in Maine, it is true that around 50% of homicides each year are domestic violence related. And that percentage is a bit higher than the rest of the country. So that's something that we really look at and take seriously as we help support and try to prevent domestic violence and especially domestic violence homicide from happening.
What kinds of factors contribute to this? Poverty, the pandemic, I'm sure, probably has not helped.
Domestic violence is a pattern of coercion, power, control, manipulation in a relationship or a family that one person is using in order to maintain control over the other members of the family. And it's based on a belief system of entitlement, that person really truly believes that they have the right to have control over their partner or the other members of the home. And so this can be something that is hard to pinpoint when it's something that you're experiencing. However, we're here to help people recognize what abuse looks like, what the dynamics look like, and help with resources and safety planning in that.
Okay.
The COVID-19 pandemic has certainly shined a bit of a spotlight on what was already an issue, which was that people who are abusive isolate their victims and make them feel like they don't have any support in the world. And when the pandemic, especially when it first happened and everyone was at home, everyone was quarantined, it made it so that the people who were already experiencing abuse, already being isolated by their abusers, were even more so in danger and had fewer resources. So we are grateful in some ways that we had more attention on the issue of domestic violence during the pandemic, and a lot of organizations and foundations reached out to support domestic violence survivors during this time. And what we hope this showed was that this has been an issue for a long time, and we hope that we can create some infrastructure within our state that can assist domestic violence survivors long term.
So I know that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, but Partners for Peace is calling it Domestic Violence Advocacy Month. Tell me why the name change.
October has historically been known as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. This month, Partners for Peace is calling on all people to think about what domestic violence advocacy is. So we are calling the month Domestic Violence Advocacy Month because we want to show all the ways in which individuals in our community can come together and advocate for survivors of domestic violence. It's not just about awareness. I think at this point we are aware that domestic violence is an issue. Now let's take action, another A word, and advocate for survivors of domestic abuse.
And what kinds of things can people do? Say that there's someone in your family you suspect is being abused. What can you do?
Anyone who is concerned for a friend or a family member, a neighbor, someone at work, you are welcome to call our 24-hour helpline at 1-800-863-9909. Partners for Peace is here for anyone who has been affected by domestic violence and abuse, and that includes friends, family members, neighbors, coworkers, who are concerned about someone who may be experiencing abuse at home. What you can do is call our helpline. We're here to support you. And when it comes to the support that you are giving your friend, family member, whoever it is, what you want to do is be open-minded, be as non-judgmental as possible, and focus on what you can do to help this person feel safe and understood. Sometimes really well-meaning people, we want to fix a situation, or we see that someone is in a relationship in which they're experiencing abuse, and so our logical response is to help them leave that situation. And while leaving is often a part of someone finding safety, it's not always the only thing that helps someone find safety. And when someone leaves an abuser, it is a very dangerous period of time. In fact, it's the most dangerous period of time. So safety looks very different from person to person, and what we want to focus on is what is going to keep you safe right now, tomorrow, and long term. And we want to help people formulate a plan that is well thought out and that has many options within it, because you might plan for one thing and then the abuser may change their tactics and their behavior, and then the plan needs to be adapted. Right. And so we are here to do that really complex planning with people, because we know that the response of why don't you just leave is not simple.
Okay. So if you're in doubt about how to help them, maybe reach out to Partners for Peace and get some advice on what to do.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Casey, what would you say to someone who's listening right now who is in an abusive situation?
If you are experiencing abuse of any kind in your relationship or in your home, or if you're experiencing something you're not exactly sure what it is, can't quite put your finger on it, but it doesn't feel right, what I want you to know is that you are not alone. There are so many of us who have also experienced this and who can help. We want to help at Partners for Peace, and we are going to do so in a way that is not going to be judgmental. We are here to support and help people do what they want to do. We're not here to tell people what to do. So if you're out there and you're listening and this is something that's happening to you, you're not alone, and we're right here to listen.
Okay. So tell me some of the things that you have. You have some events coming up for Domestic Violence Advocacy Month?
We have a couple of events coming up for Domestic Violence Advocacy Month. One of them is a story crafting workshop, which is a collaboration with Mabel Wadsworth Center, with Mabel's Voices, it's called. And these story crafting workshops, we've got a couple, are for survivors who are interested in gaining some support in how to craft their story. So if you are a survivor of domestic violence or partner abuse and you've always wanted to tell your story, but you didn't really know where to start, or you started writing and you wanted to organize your thoughts more, wanted some support in doing so from other survivors who are going through similar things, then this workshop is for you. We have 2 story crafting workshops for survivors. One is a public event on October 22nd, and we do have the same program in a confidential space at a time that we are not advertising, that survivors can access through our 24-hour helpline.
Okay. Is there more information about all of this on your website?
Yes. We have put together a calendar of domestic violence advocacy month events. And we've included a few that aren't necessarily domestic violence related, but are great community events that are connected to the issues of domestic violence and dismantling oppression. And that can be found on our website at partnersforpeaceme.org.
Okay. And let's give that hotline number again.
Anyone who has been affected by domestic violence and abuse in Penobscot and Piscataquis counties can reach out to our 24-hour helpline at 1-800-863-9909. It's confidential and it's free.
Okay, perfect. Casey, that's what I had. Did we miss anything? Is there anything you'd like to add?
Yes, I would like to add one thing.
Okay.
If you are interested in getting involved in the movement to end domestic violence in our community, we have many opportunities to get involved at Partners for Peace. And if you aren't sure exactly how you'd like to get involved, we do have an information session happening at the end of the month, October 26th. Please sign up and learn about all the ways you can get involved by volunteering, donating, supporting, coming out and using your voice to share your stories. We want to help you figure out how best you can be a part of this movement with us so that we can end domestic violence.
If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, reach out. The 24/7 hotline number is 1-800-863-9909. That's 1-800-863-9909. You can find more information at partnersforpeaceme.org. Next, a local organization that works to help children who've lost a loved one will begin their fall session later this month. Here to talk about Pathfinders is Misty Fitzgerald. So let's start with that. What is Pathfinders?
Pathfinders is a bereavement group for children and families. You know, it's an expressive arts program primarily where we serve children of all ages and their caregivers or parents.
It must be tough, particularly for young children, to deal with grief when they really don't have a good understanding of what death is.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that's, you know, our primary focus in what we call our littles group. Kiddos can come as young as 4 to Pathfinders, and that really is the focus in that group is, you know, trying to help the kiddos understand that death is a permanent thing, you know, and kind of process through that.
Do you also find that teenagers are challenging? I know they're very good at bottling up their feelings. Can it be tough for them to express their grief?
You know, our facilitators and that group particularly, I mean, all of our facilitators are fantastic. But, yeah, I think it takes some special people to work with teens and, you know, and whatever our facilitators are doing, it's working. You know, that's the group that primarily does talk through their groups. They don't tend to do a lot of the expressive art, you know, and so of course every now and then we get a teenager and that really just kind of more observes, and you know, I think that everyone can heal just the same from that, you know, taking on other people's experiences. So just knowing that they're not alone in that, I think is helpful in itself.
Right. Now, what do you mean when you say expressive arts?
So we do, you know, different art projects, different things like that so that kids can, you know, if they're not really ready to explain verbally how they're feeling, you know, about the death or situations around that. We do drawings, paintings, make projects, you know, just a variety of different things to help kiddos express how they're feeling.
Do you also have programs for parents so that they know how to communicate with their children?
Yes, absolutely. Typically, we meet on Monday nights from 6 to 7. And so, all the kiddos, they're separated by age group. And then during the same time, we offer groups for the parents or caregivers of those kiddos. And, part of the group is for them to get that peer support as well as providing education to those parents and caregivers around, what's appropriate grief, when is it time to maybe look for some additional support, what to expect, and, how best to support their kiddos.
Right. Are there signs that parents can look for in a situation like that maybe their kids are not dealing with their grief in a healthy way?
Yeah, I think that's tricky because it's definitely an individual, case-by-case situation. Right. But if you're finding that, and there's no, certain time or certain ways that kids should express their grief, there's really no right or wrong. But if it's really kind of ongoing, where it's impacting them socially, emotionally, educationally, in ways that, like I said, like ongoing, more than a couple of weeks or so, if they're very, very withdrawn, not wanting to go to school, not wanting to do those things that they used to enjoy. That's normal to kind of follow up right after a death. That's normal to take some time and want to be alone. For some kids, they don't. But I think if it's, ongoing, more than a few weeks of that, then I think definitely time to reach out to try to get some additional support.
Right. And when in question, Pathfinders can help.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not a clinical support group. Our facilitators are all volunteers. They receive at least 30 hours of training, but it really isn't like a clinical intervention. So Pathfinders is helpful, kind of the step before counseling, if you will. You know what I mean? So kids don't have to necessarily be having significant struggles, but it's just, it's great for kids to just kind of be with other kids that have gone through similar experiences that need that support and kind of managing and sorting through all those feelings that arise after a death.
Right. And like you said, knowing that they're not alone, that there are other people going through it too.
Right. And that's huge. I think for us adults, we see death as something that is, relatively common, and it's something that we expect. But for kiddos, when they experience a death, they really feel like they're the only ones that are going through this. So to be able to sit in a room and, unfortunately we're offering it virtually. So to sit in a virtual room, to be with kids that have similar experiences, that is huge.
And that answered my next question. The meetings are virtual. How do parents get their children involved?
So parents can self-refer by calling 207-275-2108. That will most likely, you'll be sent to the Pathfinders voicemail. And, I will give you a call back and we'll set up a time to meet prior to the session just so I can get a little bit of information and go from there. Our first session will be on October 18th. So we meet on Monday nights from 6 to 7 virtually. Okay. And we'll go for 7 weeks until November 29th.
For more information, contact Northern Light Home Care and Hospice. I'm Cindy Campbell. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and stay healthy.
Join us again next weekend for Maine Concerns with your Town Square Media News team.